and there's a couple, as you would imagine. We need to think about what we're doing, right? Don't design things just for things, right? Solve problems, create new devices, create new techniques, create new ways to do things, but do so with a purpose and a goal and a vision of what that looks like. And you're not going to design, and especially in this class for this semester, you're not going to design one device that does everything, right? Narrow those goals down. It's okay. It's okay. Little steps are all right. We learned a prosthesis is not just parts. There is a human part of that. And my personal favorite, just because you're a hammer or have a hammer doesn't mean everything's a nail. One of my old chairmen used to say that. Just because you're an orthopedic surgeon does not mean that everybody needs orthopedic surgery, right? And my favorite example is this guy. Varsity football in his high school, varsity basketball, never wore a prosthesis. Wide receiver, okay? Just because he's missing an arm doesn't mean he needs a prosthesis, okay? He is perfectly happy, perfectly capable, perfectly functional, and now is a sophomore at Yale, okay? Just because you have a hammer. So, thank you. I have time for questions. We can talk about it. You all can wake up with my lion friend here, and we can talk about thoughts. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns? Yep.
We've seen a lot of advances in prosthetics over the past few years. Is there anything that has really hit the mark that you think will make it commercially?
Well, there's some things that are available commercially now that are great, right? Microprocessor knees being one of those. And the reason I think that microprocessor knees are so wonderful, basically it's a knee joint, and I was going to bring one, but I rode my bike, and they're kind of, anyway. Basically, there's just a microprocessor that controls hydraulic ports so that it's stiff at one point of the gait cycle and loose at another, right? So what happens is the microprocessor figures out where you are in the gait cycle with its algorithm and says, okay, now it's time to swing, cool, let's do that. The advantage of that technology is that it's designed for safety. Right? It makes the prosthesis more reliable and more safe. That's huge, right? Because people with above the knee amputations fall down all the time, and anything we can do to reduce falls is an advantage. They took advantage of a problem that we had, and just added a reliable aspect to it. That's a great technological advancement that we never had prior to 10 years ago, 12 years ago. We'll see where my grant goes, but as we go through some of the myoelectric hand stuff, we're looking to bypass sensation and put it into a reflex loop. Rather than having to think about whether you're grabbing something, we're hoping that you can just grab it and not think about it. Right? Even without that feedback mechanism, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. What we don't need is solutions. We don't need more feet. Right, the carbon fiber feet that have been around for 20 years now, it's been a while, work very well, right? And every time you add a motor, every time you add a propulsive device, we're adding a whole bunch of visits to me, and a whole bunch of noise, and a whole bunch of weight, right? So I'm not sure that's right for a lot of people. Some people maybe, but not a lot. And so we don't necessarily need parts. What we need is advances to deal with change. How do we manage that change better? Because we've got this rigid plastic device. How do we make it so that it accommodates change in the limb? That's an advancement. That's a problem that needs to be solved.
For some stuff about brain control, arms and hands. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. You thought I might. I work with a neurosurgeon down in LA a lot, and they've been studying brain interface and feedback loops and neural implants for about 30 years. And his comment to me was, we're still doing exactly the same thing. We haven't really achieved much. We can do it, and we can get monkeys to move hands, But who wants a wire sticking out of their head? Who wants to have brain surgery in order to grab a cup of coffee? All right. So it hasn't succeeded in 30 years. We hope that it'll succeed at some point, and there's lots of people working on it. But we're not sure we're there yet. Yeah.
What extent do you use Tempur-Pedic space foam in your prosthetics?
We don't. Because, I was going to tell you because I like that pause, yeah. T-foam basically is what it's called. It gets very thin very fast, right? So you don't want to increase the bulk of the prosthesis so that it's this big, first of all, because you need that thickness. So what happens when you push on it, if you push on it with a small area, it just mashes out to nothing. The other part is it's not very efficient, it's not very efficient, so that when you move your leg forward, it kind of does one of these guys, so you get these lags, right? So you need that efficiency as well as that comfort. We use a variety of materials. So silicone-based materials tend to be a little bit less compressive, but yet offer some of the shear force control. We use a lot of closed cell foams that are more rigid, because we're really looking at distributing pressure rather than providing that cushy softness. Pressure distribution, I tell my residents, a prosthesis can be made out of brick if the pressure is right. All right? So if you've got that contour, you've got that shape down to where it matches that anatomy and it hits all those spots that aren't sensitive, it can be made of whatever. So we want that rigidity, but not without the pain. Or without the pain, yes?
So every lower extremity prosthesis that I've seen
Yes.
doesn't have toes. Is there like a particular reason?
No, some of them have toes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just this one I left, there's a cosmetic foot shell that goes over this that has toes. Right, so the stuff that you see is, some people prefer not to have that foot shell on there. Some people like having that. So, and it fits in shoes better with that. And there are split toes if you want to wear flip-flops. Oh yeah, we really are fancy.
Students in ME 113 last year did a foot that was actually doubled as a slim fit.
Yeah, it was fun. Fun project. Yes?
So we went through the whole, or like an iterative process with like 14-ish steps, and then you occasionally said like, a few days later, a few weeks later.
Yes.
What is that timeline? Obviously for people it's different, but
Yeah.
I imagine like between changing pads and like waiting for possibly a new pole or something to come out. Like,
Yeah.
what are patients dealing with in terms of this timeline?
So that first prosthesis, from the motorcycle accident on to that change of prosthesis, is typically about 6 months, right? And usually, and there's a lot more steps in between. I just figured we could go on for weeks. You got the idea. So typically it's weekly visits that extend out to every couple weeks, then every couple months. Once that first 6 months is over, give or take, then we move into the next prosthesis, which can last a couple of years. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
Sounds like based on your current research that you don't really believe that like haptic feedback loops would be a good method.
Yeah. Well, my theory is, and whether it's true or not, we'll find out, is that whenever you provide a haptic feedback of any kind, you have to think about and interpret that, right? Even if it's a skin stretch or vibration, I find to be a noxious stimulus, so we don't use that, or I don't like that. People go, ooh, that's enough. But skin stretch or motion or pressure gauges within the prosthesis require interpretation, right? They require you to stop and say, okay, is this enough pressure to hold that cup, or am I going to have to worry about it, right? My concept is people don't want to think about this stuff. They want to just do it. So by providing a feedback loop of contact detection, we're able to grab onto something and not worry about dropping it.
Is there like a difference in training?
Yeah, no, what we've found so far is that it's been very quick, that it's a little bit more intuitive, and we're getting, just a brief description. We're doing fragile item. So we're taking Ritz crackers and moving them from this sounds sort of weird in this environment, but taking Ritz crackers and moving them from point A to point B without breaking them, right? And so what we found is we're getting near sound side speed, right? And that to me is very important, that you can get close to that normal speed without thinking about it. So I'm optimistic. Okay.
I think at this point, the class is almost over, so we should thank Gary for his
Thank you.